Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on Major Hurricane Beryl. It is still a Category 4 storm with us this morning. It did weaken somewhat overnight, but folks, it did not weaken near as much as we need it to. It's still in the process of weakening. It's getting hit by some wind shear, which is causing that weakening. But guys, we're running out of time. This is heading right towards Jamaica. Conditions will go downhill rapidly over the coming hours and the next several hours. The good news in all of this is the fact that this is going to move in quick and then move out quick. It's not really a slow moving hurricane. It's moving over like 20 miles per hour. So it's moving pretty quick. It's been cruising across the Caribbean at a pretty quick pace. But we're going to go over all the latest information that we have, talk about what's going on with it right now, the latest from the National Hurricane Center. We'll really zoom into Jamaica one last time because by the time we make a video this evening, this is already moving past Jamaica. But we'll zoom in for you folks one last time and talk about how this could bring, unfortunately, devastating impacts to you folks. And I'm not trying to freak anybody out, scare anyone. We don't do that on this channel. I'm just kind of bringing the reality of things to you folks in this video. So we're going to do it one last time for you folks in Jamaica. Try to, break down some model guidance, but this thing is right at you. It's coming right at you right now. So we'll do that after we discuss Jamaica. We'll get past that and we'll talk about what's going to happen afterwards. We'll go over all the model guidance, talk about how this is going to hit the Yucatan Peninsula, most likely sneak into the Gulf of Mexico and potentially turn and maybe impact the U.S. It's going to make a fourth landfall, I think, regardless, a third or fourth, because if it makes a landfall in Jamaica, I believe that would be the second landfall. The Yucatan Peninsula is going to be the third, okay, and then we're probably going to get a fourth, okay, or a third if it does not make a technical landfall over Jamaica, somewhere in Mexico, Texas, maybe even Louisiana. So we're going to talk about how it could re-strengthen and why. We're going to break down the steering currents, and just like we've been doing, we're going to get very detailed with you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if you guys got anything to pray, I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. We are praying for you folks in Jamaica. We are praying like crazy for you guys. So this is the latest on what's going on with Hurricane Beryl. Still a Category 4 hurricane. As of the latest 5 a.m. update, this will probably change, maybe. It was a 145 mile per hour storm. When I did the video last night, it dropped from 155 to 150. So that just tells you that this did not weaken as much as we needed it to overnight. Okay, we were hoping this was going to weaken to like maybe a 135, 140 storm. Still 145 technically right now. Might weaken at the 8 a.m. update. We'll have to see what happens. Regardless, it's just coming for you folks. So as you can tell, there's no cleared out eye anymore. You can tell that this is getting impacted by shear on the western side. To like 25 to 30 knots of it. This is basically eating away some of the convection on the western side of the system, allowing for a little dry air to basically disrupt the storm. Okay, it just does not look like that symmetrical, healthy hurricane anymore. It definitely looks like it's getting interfered with, that's for sure. But still intense convection wrapping around the core. You can still clearly see where there is a core right into here. And, you folks in the Windward Islands, you guys could tell Jamaica, this is not, the conditions are not going to deteriorate until right when you get inside that eye wall, guys. It's going to go from, okay, this isn't that bad to holy smokes, this is terrible. And we'll talk more on that here in a second. But this is a close-up look at Hurricane Beryl. Still getting some nasty weather into Haiti right now. A wide look, okay, the brown colors indicate dry air, the more greener colors indicate more moist air. And if you look really closely right into here, and let's draw on this, make sure this is working, it is. If you look really closely into these bands right in here, they're kind of getting ate up by that shear and that dry air. If you notice, these bands kind of go up and then they dramatically shoot off like this, okay? That is our tut interaction that's affecting this storm, bringing this shear to like the northwestern side of the storm, or just the western side in general. So it's really getting blasted by flow in the upper and mid levels out the southwest, especially the mid levels. So this is really affecting this portion of the storm right here. And this is why this has been slowly weakening. This has just had such a strong core to it that it has not been disrupted as much as we need it to, and what was originally forecast for it to be to. So this is heading right towards Jamaica. It's still a very healthy hurricane, but it is certainly in the weakening stage right now, I would say. So Wide look at it right now, Jamaica, the worst is yet to come. So let's talk about the latest that we have from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see if we have a new update. Yeah, I think no, still 145 mile per hour hurricane, which was the same update from 5 a.m. So we're still at the 5 a.m. update. Center of the storm right here, Jamaica right here, Haiti here, entire area of Jamaica under a hurricane warning. We know that already. That's been the case for at least a day now. We'll zoom in. They're saying the center of the storm right now is going to go south of Jamaica. If you don't know, the more highly populated region of Jamaica is the southern section of Jamaica. Kingston right here, probably the most highly populated area, I would imagine. But listen, I really think at minimum, even if the center of the storm misses you guys to the south and it doesn't make a technical landfall into Jamaica, okay, I do think the northern eye wall at minimum is going to basically grind across the southern sections of Jamaica and bring hurricane force conditions. And not only hurricane force conditions, but major hurricane force wind conditions, like winds over 100, 110 miles per hour. Maybe not consistently, but wind gusts certainly. Okay. And, a lot of people misunderstand, the fact that, well, if it's not going to make a direct landfall, then I don't think I'm going to get as bad as impacts. Well, if you get impacted by that inner eye wall of the hurricane, even though the eye might not move over your area, if you get impacted by the inner eye wall, that is the worst impacts of the storm. Once you get into the eye, there's a calming, especially if it's a stronger hurricane. Okay, there's kind of a calm portion in it. Okay, but if you're impacted by the inner eye wall, that is where things just really dramatically, that's where those highest wind gusts are measured. Okay. So we kind of zoom back out, still forecast to be a 130 mile per hour category 4 major hurricane impacting area, just about all of Jamaica, especially the southern sections of Jamaica. All right. This could very well be 135, 140 mile per hour major hurricane still. I mean, it's running out of time to weaken, right? I mean, it's right here. Now, once it gets south of the Cayman Islands, still forecast to be a category 3 major hurricane. Hurricane warnings up for the Cayman Islands, Georgetown. I think you guys are going to get some high-end impacts from this, especially if this continues to tick north than forecast. The more it ticks north, guys, the higher risk that you guys are going to get devastating impacts also in the Cayman Islands. Okay, Cuba up here, I think you're safe. By the time, we'll kind of zoom out now, by the time we get into the Western Caribbean, I think we'll have about a 24-hour period where this will be in the wide open water again. Kind of like how it's been for the most part over the last 24 hours. Okay, wide open Western Caribbean. Is this going to try to re-strengthen? A lot of model guidance has this kind of maintaining in the Western Caribbean. Okay, some weakening, some have it strengthening a little bit, but mostly maintaining. Hurricane watches up for the Yucatan Peninsula. Tropical storm watches down to Belize City. Okay, I do think you're going to see some impacts in Belize. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But I think the impacts are going to be in the northern sections. Okay, I think that you guys are safe from the worst impacts. I think the worst impacts will certainly happen in the Yucatan Peninsula. And you zoom into these areas here. I'm not going to try to pronounce some of these cities. I know Cancun, you got to watch because this could shift north. But, you guys just zooming into some of these areas, they're saying the center of the storm is going to make impact somewhere into here. Okay. But it could be north. It could be south. That's why the cone is spread out here. It's going to weaken dramatically over the Yucatan. Okay. With land interaction. Still, I mean, they're saying it's going to weaken all the way down to a tropical storm. It's going to get back over the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico, one of the warmest bodies of water on Earth, folks. The temperatures are in the low to mid 80s. I mean, mid 80s in a lot of areas. It's like a bathtub in the Gulf of Mexico. Says it's already re-strengthening as we're getting into Friday night. And then it's already forecast now. The latest information now has this re-strengthening in the Gulf of Mexico to a hurricane. As of now, they have the center of this storm going south of Brownsville, Texas. But look, a good chunk of Texas is in the cone now. Not all the way up to Houston or anything, or Louisiana. But we have to watch how much this tweaks. I don't think we have enough model guidance that supports this really jumping way up. Okay, but this is the latest cone. Okay, more of the traditional look to this. Okay, 145 mile per hour storm, jetting west-northwest at 20 miles per hour. So still has a little bit of that northerly motion to it, but mainly west. traditional look, those tropical storm watches will get upgraded to warnings here in the coming hours. Okay. I'm sorry, those hurricane watches will get upgraded to hurricane warnings in the coming hours. And you'll probably get an upgrade to a tropical storm warning, maybe down here to Belize. Okay. Hurricane warnings will remain in effect for the Cayman Islands, no doubt. And in the coming days, we'll start to get hurricane watches, most likely for maybe southern Texas and definitely the coastline of Mexico. We just got to see what happens with this. So this is the latest, more traditional look. Okay. Now I want to show you this really fast. Right now, they're saying the central minimum pressure is a 946 millibar storm. So we compare that to some of these short-range, hurricane models, and this is when we're really going to zoom into the impacts for Jamaica. One last time, because this is coming to you right now. All right? And I feel like the model that's doing the best as far as initiation is the HMON model, saying it's a 946 millibar hurricane, and that's exactly what it is as of right at this moment. Okay, so here comes the storm. As you can tell this morning, you guys are probably starting to get some gusty winds, maybe some outer bands. But as we continue to make our way deeper into the morning, it's around 11 a.m. Eastern time, okay, you're starting to get hit by the deeper convection, getting closer to that outer eye wall, which is more so right into here, okay? We're starting to get these outer bands that are sweeping across eastern sections of Jamaica. Okay, Kingston starting to get some hefty impacts here in the coming hours. Now, we bumped this up to just after lunchtime. Okay, about midday, you might as well say. The HMON model has this a Category 4 hurricane still just south of the southern Jamaican coastline here. Okay, Kingston right into here. The inner eye wall, folks, I would say is right into here. Okay. I mean, really just tucked in right. I mean, I would even close these lines a little bit more. The outer eye wall, is probably more so right into here. Okay, so the outer eye wall is going to bring probably 70 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts. You get into that inner eye wall, that's when you start to see wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. How close does this eye wall get to the coastline of Jamaica? That's a big, big question, folks. Okay, and we're going to figure it out here in the coming hours. All right, you keep this going. This makes a landfall. Okay, this makes a landfall sometime this afternoon. It would make a landfall, if we kind of look at Google Maps, it would make a landfall somewhere in Lioneltown, Portland College, Maho Gardens. I'm probably butchering some names here, but you get it. This extension right here in the southern coastline of Jamaica, if it's going to make a landfall anywhere, I think it's going to happen right here. Okay, right into this area. This is where the heaviest impacts, I think, is going to be. Obviously, the higher terrain, all the rain getting pushed up, flooding will be a huge deal in the Blue Mountain Peak and the Blue Mountain National Park and these higher elevations right here of eastern Jamaica. But I'm really concerned about the higher populated region of Kingston and this entire area right into here being impacted by the eye wall. But folks, I draw that here, and I'm telling you, this is a now thing. The entire core of the hurricane could go right over Jamaica. Okay? Now we go back to the radar here, predicted radar. Like I said, it makes an actual landfall, the HMON model does, into kind of the southwestern coastline of Jamaica. Okay? And then it heads on off, and we got to figure out what's going to do in the Western Caribbean, which we'll show you here in a second. All right? But another way to look at this, this is potential wind gusts, not just consistent winds. Okay? So this is the HFB model, which I have to kind of flip the models here because they don't have a close-in look on Weather Bell for the HMON model. So I have to show you the HFB model here. But I mean, it's about similar here. It brings this right into just south of Kingston, right into the Bay Area, right into here. Okay, and you see where it says 147? That's where they're saying there's going to potentially be 147 mile per hour wind gust. I don't think it'll be that strong, but into Kingston. Okay, but you see this core right in here. This is where you could potentially have, you look at the color code down here, over 100. I'm just going to say, just over 110 to 130 mile per hour wind gusts if something like this happens. And this is what I'm concerned about, guys. This entire northern eye wall is scraping and grinding against the entire southern half of Jamaica. Okay, and if this moves inland into Jamaica, then I mean, the northern, I know I haven't mentioned the northern section of Jamaica, but if I think anybody's going to get, it's hard to speak in absolutes here, guys, for you folks in Jamaica. But I think if anybody's going to get the worst impacts, the southern sections and then the western sections of Jamaica. Unless, we go back and look at this, unless this goes, and I'm going to try to use use pink here. Unless this goes like this, okay? And it potentially could. It could. All right, so get back off that. Get back to this. But this is concerning, a concerning look. I think we can get widespread 70 to 100 mile per hour winds across the entire island of Jamaica. If we talk about, potential rainfall, this has not been updated. They have not done a great job with keeping this updated, but I think it remains the same. This is going to be such a quick moving hurricane, okay, that it'll move in, it'll move out, but that's still not going to stop it from delivering over a foot of rain, sort of in the eastern sections of Jamaica, which is the higher terrain in Jamaica, okay? So a lot of rain is going to get pushed up against the mountains. You're going to have to lift. You're probably going to have issues with flash flooding, no doubt. Widespread 6 to 12 inches across Jamaica. Some people less, some people more. Okay, so I'm praying for you folks. I really am. I'm really concerned about you guys. And, the video last night did very well. And just breezing through the comments, which I won't have time to get to until this afternoon. A lot of people are tuning in from Jamaica. And I just want to say thank you for trusting me. It's just some person from the U.S. here in South Carolina. And I'm certain we are praying like crazy for you folks. Okay, we are. And you guys will definitely have to let me know when things settle down, what you're seeing out there. I have social media platforms on Facebook, Mitch West Weather, and on my Twitter. It's called X now. Tag me in some stuff if you get time so I can just spread the news to whomever so we can get some help to you guys. Okay, so there's a lot of people that have organizations together. But anyways, moving past Jamaica. All right, this is getting into the east, to the Western Caribbean, okay? Ignore the mess out of the strength of this system. The global models are just handling this awful as far as the strength. So ignore the strength of this system. I will mention it, okay? But for the most part, ignore it. Okay, we get into Thursday morning. This is still bringing impacts to the Cayman Islands, but for the most part is west of the Cayman Islands. It's getting to the Western Caribbean. At this point, it's starting to stare down the Yucatan Peninsula. How strong will it be? Will it be a Category 1, 2? Will it still be a major hurricane? Model guidance differs on what happens in the Western Caribbean. Is this going to maintain strength? Is it going to slightly strengthen or slightly weaken? I don't think it'll do a dramatic of either one. I think if anything, you average it out and say this will maintain itself as it enters a somewhat period of more favorable conditions in the Western Caribbean. But I think that the weakening is going to happen between now and the next 24 hours, especially if it goes right over Jamaica. That'll disrupt the actual core of the system, especially with the higher terrain of Jamaica. Okay? And then this makes landfall sometime tomorrow night into the Yucatan Peninsula as a hurricane. How strong? Not sure. But as you can tell, Bailey's right in here. The core of this system hits the Yucatan into Mexico. Then this gets back over water into the Gulf of Mexico Friday night, July 5th. What does it do after this? Okay, it starts to, the latest GFS starts to abruptly turn this north, getting into Saturday evening, July the 6th. See how that numbers begin to drop? It's inching northwest, and then it gets right here as once again, maybe a major hurricane after weakening right off the coast of Brownsville, Texas here, and then dramatically starts to turn north and makes a landfall like right over Corpus Christi in the latest GFS. It's the latest one, okay? We're not even close to done with this. I mean, what is it, July 3rd? We still got about 5 more days of this, I think, at least. All right? Now, the euro. We'll look at it for what it is. Maintains strength in the Western Caribbean over the next couple of days. Makes a landfall a little bit further south. The euro has consistently been weaker with this system in south, but it's consistently been wrong also. So it's a little bit closer to Belize, so we're watching you folks. Moves over the Yucatan, weakens, then it begins to strengthen again, somewhat in the Bay of Campeche, then it weakens, then it maintains, then it strengthens, and it just is very south. Hits Mexico. Okay, the Gulf of Mexico side of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico side of Mexico. So I don't even want to stay on that very long, to be honest with you, just because it's very weird. The icon. I'm consistently showing you guys the icon because if this ends up recurving and hitting Texas or even Louisiana, we can go back and say the icon saw it first because it really did. So I'll consistently keep showing it to you until it's proven wrong. Okay? It is initializing the strongest with this too. Makes landfall in the Yucatan as a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane late Thursday night and a Friday morning. It almost completely misses the Yucatan. Okay, it goes to the northern section of it, doesn't stay over land as long. Okay, by the time we're in the Friday evening, this is back into a body of water called the Gulf of Mexico. Between the warmer sea surface temperatures and I think an improving upper wind pattern, this begins to strengthen again. It's turning northwest. And folks, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see what you're seeing here. This number is deepening, indicating a strengthening hurricane, and it is heading right towards Texas or Louisiana. I mean, it's moving due north. In fact, it starts to move almost east. It almost starts to move a little bit east. Still more so north, but a little bit east. And it makes landfall. It goes on to make landfall next Monday as a high-end hurricane. Please don't tell everybody in your cousins, uncle, grandma that Mitch is saying, you guys are going to get hit by a hurricane. I'm just showing you model guidance. Now, we take a look at some of the short-range model guidance, okay? And we'll kind of go back to the HMON model, which we just showed you for Jamaica. This thing gets out into the Western Caribbean, brings some nasty impacts to the Cayman Islands. It kind of bounces back and forth as far as the strength of the system, goes to the 980s, then back to the 970s. Makes a landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula as a Category 1 or 2 hurricane. Okay, goes over the Yucatan, weakens, gets into the Gulf of Mexico. That number you see begins to drop again. All right, it drops rapidly for a time, and then it drops as it makes a landfall into Mexico. This is Texas, Brownsville. Makes a landfall in Texas. Okay, now we back all this up and we'll look at some other short-range model guidance. Okay, let's look at the H-Wharf model, which has showed kind of the worst-case scenario all along. It normally does, too. Okay, this makes landfall as a major hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane to the Yucatan Peninsula. Doesn't even weaken it all the way to a tropical storm. Maintains hurricane status. It doesn't weaken fast enough. Gets into the Gulf of Mexico. See that number steadily dropping, back down to sub 970. Gets all the way to sub 960. This is moving further north. It abruptly turns north here. We don't want to see this. It's got to hit somebody. It's going to hit somebody. This is getting into Sunday night, July the 7th. Okay, this is right off the coastline of southern Texas, and this looks like it's about to head due north, maybe and eventually northeast, as it feels the trough to the north. It's definitely a worrisome scenario. Okay, and if we kind of compare this with, let's look at the HFA model. Okay, this takes it right into Mexico. Okay, so we're watching to see what's happening. We look at some of the kind of model guidance here from Tropical Tidbits. Some of these runs got it going into Texas. A lot of them still got it going into Mexico. All of them got it going into the Yucatan Peninsula, though. Okay? If we look at the intensity forecast, notice how some of them drop because it's going to weaken, all right? But a lot of them level off at Category 2 status. Kind of remains in this area. A lot of them dramatically drop. But guys, there's a lot of them between now and the next 5 days that stay a pretty strong hurricane right into here. Okay? So, there's a lot to watch. A lot to watch, guys. And here's another look at the GEFS ensemble guidance. We'll see if we have any new updated, and we do not. But here's a look at that. This is the OOZ, so the 06Z is running now. This might trend north or south. We just got to watch. Okay? Now, the reason that this is kind of in a weakening stage right now is because it's encountering the Tut. It's encountering shear, which we were always expecting this to happen. And you can see this is shear in the... No, it's not what I want to do. This is, okay, we're good now. This is shear in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So if you notice these tree lines, they're kind of diving down here, and then they kind of dip here over the Yucatan, and then they kind of dramatically go like this. Okay? This is the shear that's impacting our system, which is right here. It's impacting, I would say, more so the northwestern side of the system. You're always expecting this. Okay? But this thing has been resilient. But this is a Tut, kind of persistent upper-level trough that hangs out over areas of the Caribbean this time of the year. A lot of times it hangs out over this area. Okay, this is why we call the Eastern Caribbean the graveyard of the Caribbean, where tropical systems go to die. But it just wasn't the case this time. And if we look at the upper levels, it's harder to see this because the shear is mainly in the mid-levels. Okay, but you can still see it. Okay, you see the streamlines going like this. and they kind of dramatically turn right here over the Yucatan, then they kind of screech across like this. You can still see the tut interaction. So what's happening here is this tropical system is actually going to break this tut in half. You'll have a piece of this tut kind of go over here, and then a majority of it kind of go back to the east. The outflow from the system is doing that. It's going to kind of break it loose here. But as it's doing that, it's going to weaken the storm. Okay? It's definitely a sacrifice being made there to kind of weaken it. Okay? Makes that landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, and then we have to watch for an upper level anticyclonic flow here. A ULAC is the acronym for it. And if you notice, once again, we are dealing with this very favorable outflow that's kind of going like this. That's kind of going like this. So this is a nice anticyclonic flow over the system, over the western Gulf of Mexico. This is going to promote strengthening in the upper levels and allow this to start breathing very well. It's going to give this an opportunity to strengthen. Okay, you combine that. Okay, you combine that with the fact that this is going to be over even warmer ocean. It's going to be basically under this over the same conditions that it is right now. Sea surface temperatures will be in the low to mid 80s. They're even warmer, mid to even some upper 80s once it gets tucked in close to areas off the coast of Texas and Louisiana, where you got 30 to 31 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to like the mid to getting even close to the upper 80s in Fahrenheit. Okay, a little pool of cooler water because we've had a couple tropical systems right in here in this region, but I don't think this will do much to this. Okay, so I haven't showed you this much, but this has kind of been something that everybody knows about for the most part. We're dealing with above average sea surface temperatures. This is typically what you see in August and September, and even it's even warmer than average than what if it was that time of the year now. Okay, let's talk about steering currents. So this is the part that is always the most difficult to explain, I would say, but I'm going to try to explain in the best way where you guys, the audience, can understand. The blue colors, this indicates lower pressure. Okay. Just kind of checking that because it shows the blue. The orange colors, kind of the warmer looking colors, this is ridging. Okay, you got ridge and you got low pressure. Okay, ridge of high pressure, you got a trough of low pressure. The flow around both of these features are different. So low pressure, you got a cyclonic flow over this, and in the northern hemisphere, this is exactly the way these tropical systems spin. Okay, so the flow around this ridging is kind of going like this in the mid levels of the atmosphere. Kind of going like that, and that's kind of the current for the most part. Now, it's not exactly that, but I'm just kind of providing an example of how the flow goes around the ridging. Now, there's stronger ridging influences in here where the currents might kind of go like this, but you get it. So for the most part, the currents right here, you got a ridge on top of the system. There's a weakness over here, okay, but it missed that weakness. It's not going to turn and go like this because it would have to fight the current around the ridge. So it's not going to try to pull reverse and go back and find that. It missed its opportunity to hit that trough. So the reason this is still going west-northwest is because it's feeling the influence from the wind currents around this ridge. So, it's cruising this way, okay? And eventually, it actually just might go due west. Some model guidance was having this going west-southwest for a time. So we get this back off your screen. We'll watch how the ridge changes as we move over the next 24 hours, okay? Now we take it to Thursday morning, okay? Flow still going like this. You still got some weak ridging over here, okay? But it looks like it's in this area, it's beginning to weaken, okay? Still strong right in here. We're ignoring this. This is our tropical system right here, okay? There's starting to become some sort of weakness right in here. If you look really closely, you're seeing some blue in your screen. Okay, it looks like this ridge is breaking up, okay? Our tropical system is going to feel that. Watch what happens here. Get this back off your screen. This makes landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, and we'll actually take it all the way to about midday Friday. This is starting to enter the southern Gulf of Mexico. It fully starts to feel the weakness now. The orange has went away. It's completely shifting this way. We have a massive trough that's digging down into the eastern U.S. right here. You see the blue shaded color? This is digging down. This is splitting this ridge. It's weakening it, basically causing a weakness in the upper wind pattern, the steering current. So flow around this trough is going to go like this, okay, just like it does like this around this. Okay, this isn't a giant hurricane, by the way. It's just an upper level low. And just like how it turns around our hurricane system, okay, cyclonic flow. Okay, this is just the bottom area. Okay, so this trough is creating a full-fledged weakness right into here. All right. So there's no more ridging for this to kind of curve around and to kind of make it go like this. Okay. There's nothing to really do that. This feels that weakness in this area. So this is going to start to move a little bit further north. It might even do something like this. It might still, it might still do something like this. Okay. So watch what happens with that blue blob in the Gulf of Mexico. As you move this, and if you continue to move this, full-fledged trough up here, there's just a wide open weakness, and it gets weaker and weaker to the point where this thing's like, okay, I can completely escape and turn north. Stronger systems want to gain latitude. They want to get north. They do not want to go zonal. Okay? They always want to go polar. Okay, so full-fledged weakness here. This trough might dig down so much that there actually might be some easterly flow that forces this tropical system to not only go northwest to north, to eventually begin to move like this. We've seen some hints of that in some of the model guidance. Okay? And you keep this going, it makes landfall in Texas. All right, so that weakness is created. Quick look at this, big ridge over the southern sections of the country. That ridge disappears, trough opens the ridge up, this thing is turning. Okay? So hopefully I explained that in a way where you guys can understand. That's why this has a chance to turn in the Gulf of Mexico. Now let's talk about the rest of the country. We never want to leave you guys hanging. As far as what's happening today, all right, rain moving across the middle of the country, from all the way from northern Mexico, all the way through Texas, the southern plains, to the Midwest, all the way up into Canada. Okay, we do have some flash flood warnings up from Missouri, some showers and storms in Missouri, some storms making its way into like St. Louis right now. But other than that, a little tropical downpour action along the Gulf coastline off the coast of the southeast. A little bit of shower activity in the northern Rockies. But, outside of that, there's nothing too active. The active part of the weather today is the heat, excessive heat warnings where the heat indices will get, feels like temperatures will get over 110, 115 degrees. Heat advisories surround that. This is starting to ooze into Georgia now. We got them down here in Florida, creeping into the Ohio Valley. The heat is moving back in. Okay? We just have to see how long it lasts. Big time heat, with a ridge that's going to flex across the western U.S. and a trough dig in the middle of the country and a ridge into the east. You got relief on the way for the central U.S. That's the good news. But a lot of excessive heat warnings, red flag warnings, heat advisories, excessive heat watches out west. Okay. Risk of excessive rainfall, a slight risk here, means you have at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles on any given point right here in the middle of the country. So if you live in the area, yellow area, please be aware of that. And then the risk of severe weather, slight risk. We'll zoom into this area, extending from Springfield, Missouri, all the way up to Columbus, Ohio. Includes Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Louisville, Evansville, and everybody in between in this yellow area. Level 2 out of 5 risk. Slight risk for the northern plains, down to the high plains, and just the central U.S. too. Okay, marginal risk with everybody in between. There's a 5% risk of a tornado here in western Nebraska, in a section of northeastern Colorado. Wind threat, 15% risk here, 15% risk here, with a hatch risk here, which means in the yellow, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. In the black outline region, that's a 10% risk of winds exceeding 75 miles per hour or higher. And then the hail threat. Not only do you have that 15% risk of hail here, approaching 1 inch in diameter or larger, you also have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger here. Okay, so hail threat is going to be a big deal today. There's a risk of significant hail. The southeast today, just some downpours kind of dancing around in Florida, southern Georgia, southeastern sections of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. Watch out for just some tropical downpour action. Just pretty much the same pattern of what you've seen over the last few days. The rest of the southeast, a little bit further north, it'll be a quiet day. It's definitely starting to heat up, especially the further west you go. We'll talk about this storm action up here in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley here in a second. But everybody else, I think the Carolinas will remain pretty dry. Just watch out for some storm action. In southern Georgia, pretty much anywhere in Florida and those areas. We get into the overnight hours, everything looks pretty calm unless you get up here. Still just dealing with just intermediate downpours down here in southern Louisiana. The Northeast today, pretty quiet weather. I mean, pretty nice weather. We'll get some storms in Ohio. Central Ohio, you do got that slight risk. Here's those storms. We'll kind of zoom into Ohio here again in a second. These storms will try to get into northwestern Pennsylvania. Eventually, these storms into this evening will get into western New York, affect the Finger Lakes region, maybe all the way into central New York. There's some more storms cruising through the southern half of Ohio tonight. This is like getting close to midnight. And then we could get some storms, some bursts of heavy rain into the Adirondacks, the Green and White Mountains of Vermont and New Hampshire, Finger Lakes. We'll just get some energy. They'll flow through overnight and then wake up tomorrow morning with just some scattered shower, maybe even some storm activity to greet you guys for your 4th of July morning. South Central U.S., hot, miserably hot and humid today. You're going to be begging for a storm. But we get into this afternoon, we got just some scattered shower and storm activity stretching over the same areas that's being impacted by it right now. Some isolated downpours right into here. Some storms. Watch out. Maybe damaging winds are possible in Missouri, Springfield, up to St. Louis, down to the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Missouri, basically. Watch out for some nasty storms later this afternoon to this evening. And some big storms could be ongoing in eastern sections of Colorado and pretty much anywhere in Kansas, northern Oklahoma. We got the pop-ups down here in Mississippi and Louisiana. And all this energy begins to move eastward as we get into the overnight hours. But once again, we're going to deal with overnight showers and storms anywhere from like Tulsa, Oklahoma, eastern sections of Kansas, through Missouri, all the way through southern Illinois. Okay, and then we'll have some more energy tomorrow morning up here in Nebraska and areas of Kansas. Okay, the heat is going to be bad. Actual air temperatures will get into like above 100 from Oklahoma City to, up to Tulsa probably, Dallas-Fort Worth area till about 99 to 100 in Shreveport up to Little Rock. Same thing with Memphis. Just miserably hot weather. You look at the heat indices with this, the feels like temperatures. By the time we get to the hottest part of the day, folks, the heat index in the Mississippi Delta area getting close to 120 degrees. So just miserably hot. Not as high in humidity back here in Texas. It's really Arkansas, Louisiana, western Tennessee, into southern Missouri and Mississippi, where the heat indices will just be unbearably bad out here for sure. The north central U.S., we're going to deal with some moisture. Look at those supercells forming in western Nebraska. These will have the ingredients to produce tornadoes, very large hail and damaging winds. All hazards, just a smaller risk of all hazards, if that makes sense. Some of these supercells could sneak into southern South Dakota. We continue to get this in motion. Could have an organized complex of storms that moves through areas of western Kansas. Could pack a punch, especially with damaging winds. And we'll just have to watch for individual kind of areas of storms. Look at central South Dakota. Some storms moving in late this evening. And I think this will lose some steam as we're waking up tomorrow morning. But we're going to be dealing with some rain around the Sioux Falls area. Getting into Omaha, Lincoln, as we're getting deeper into our morning tomorrow morning. Definitely a rainy start to our 4th of July. So we'll have to watch for that. As we get a closer look at the Ohio Valley and the Midwest, though, okay, we just got to watch for these storms later today. Some storms into southern sections of Illinois, southern areas of Indiana. Got some storms moving into Ohio. Look at these storms in southeastern Missouri. These could produce damaging winds and some hail. I think damaging winds are the biggest threat with this. So if you live anywhere in the Midwest today, but mainly more so, like I said, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, this is where your highest impacts will be. Damaging winds, definitely the biggest threat with this for sure. So heavy rain. This will continue to kind of move zonal, if you will. You get into this evening. Some storms down here continue for the Boot Hill, Missouri. Maybe this breaks up. Watch out in Ohio, so storms are possible. These aren't going to be anything too crazy to get, super worried about or anything like that. But certainly, they could pack some damaging winds, and we'll have to watch for more organized area of moisture to move in later into tomorrow morning. But some damaging winds are possible with these. You look at the north central U.S. and the northern plains. This is definitely where I think the most high impact weather will be in the U.S. Scattered storms pretty much anywhere in Montana are possible, okay, this afternoon. But you see these individual discrete supercells here. You might get a tornado or two out of these in western Nebraska, eastern sections of Colorado. Very large hail, damaging winds are possible with these. Some people might get hit by one. Some people might not get a drop of rain. More organized area storms moving into areas of South Dakota. While we'll have to watch for a complex of storms here in western and especially northwestern sections of Kansas. Watch out in Colby, for example, Kansas. This could pack a punch later this evening. Damaging winds will be the biggest threat. And then this cruises through. Okay, if you look at the updraft velocity swath, certainly indicates some stronger updrafts with these storms, rotating updrafts. So some of these are going to produce a risk for a tornado, as you can tell in this region here. So Out west, just outside of that storm opportunity in areas of Montana, some scattered downpours across really southern sections of Arizona and New Mexico. You get a little bit further west into just the western U.S., extreme western U.S., much quieter. You got a ridge building in. It's just going to be very, very hot today. Temperatures today, nice day in the Northeast, 70s and 80s. Not too bad in the upper portion of the country, just 70s and 80s. You get south of this kind of trough, this boundary, 90s and 100s across the deep south and the southern tier of the country. And then you move into the western U.S., it certainly is very hot in the southwest, getting well into the hundreds in the Valley of California. But in the upper portion of the Rockies, not as bad. So God bless all y'all. You have a wonderful day. We'll do it again this evening, and I'll talk to you soon.